Right now, I'd like to invite Chris and Ashley Gerhardt to come up here with me. Yeah, you can clap for them if you want. They've got a cheering section. I'm giving Ashley, yep, okay. We just got to make sure we got our, if you guys want to sit right here. All right, I'll sit right here. So this is Chris and Ashley, and you got to know, it's not necessarily easy to come up here and talk to you, though we're trying to make them comfortable with these chairs. So would you guys, here's the deal. If I nod off, just kick me. I won't nod off, I promise. I promise, but this is a nice chair. So this is Chris and Ashley, and we have some questions for them, but do you want to introduce, maybe, are there any special people sitting on the first or second row that, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. This is my wife, Ashley Gerhardt. I'm Chris Gerhardt. And we can, I suppose, get into our story here in a bit. But our daughter, the oldest, Mackenzie, is in the front row. And she's in 6th grade. And then Caden and Colton are our youngest boys in 5th grade and 2nd grade. So thanks for being here.
All right, so I have 4 questions here. Talking about renewed, how God has renewed your life, where you've seen that. Would you tell us about your childhood, family, learning about God? What was that like for you guys?
So I grew up in Las Vegas, born and raised, and I primarily played sports. I learned about God through my grandfather. He would read the Bible on his kitchen table to my cousins and I, and that was his way of doing devotions with us. In my early teenage years, my family suffered a divorce, which was due to financial issues.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Chris?
Well, I was born and raised here in Fairmont. I think I had a pretty normal childhood. My parents were Brad and Nyla Gerhardt, so I grew up in a law enforcement family and with a mom who was in banking. My life was centered around sports, too. My parents always taught us the 3 values that they wanted us 3 boys to be raised with, and that was hard work and honesty and love. And they always told us if we focused on those 3, then we could get to do whatever we wanted in life, and we could achieve whatever dreams we had, which at the time made sense, but later on in life, that was slightly adjusted. I learned about God by going to Grace Lutheran Church. Went almost every Sunday and then Wednesday for confirmation. Had a lot of good mentors, Matt Nielsen and Beth Neist and Tom Lytle, that helped teach me about God, and went through confirmation and checked all the boxes, and that was pretty much my childhood at that point.
Yeah, so what happened next, like in your story? You both have different journeys to God. Where did you go after that?
So following the Sin City expectations to normalize drug use, gambling, divorce, loans, violence, and more, I lived in a blending family, which had mixed holidays where money was used to express who loved who more. I also, in my late teen years, I was in an abusive relationship, and then I also, during that time, lost my grandfather, who was our family leader.
How about you, Chris?
So I went off to college up at UMD, and college is a unique time for every child who thinks they're an adult and knows what's best, and they just search for that thing that gives their life purpose. For me, I had a communication advisor who, I remember the book and the assignment, we had to read On the Good Life by Cicero, and he was a Greek philosopher, and his argument to the purpose of life is to be morally good. So that's to chase after wisdom and justice and temperance. And I could get behind that. I mean, wisdom, if I could learn enough, I thought that would help. Justice, being raised with a father who at that point was the sheriff. I'm like, well, yeah, I can bring justice. I can find those people who need to be righted, who made poor choices, and to redirect them. And temperance. And we all know Satan is subtle. When he gets into our lives, it's very subtle. We think it's good at the time, but temperance would be all things in moderation. So in college, I fell into the using substances, but not too much. So then I felt it was in moderation. Or slight gambling or going out late or engaging with relationships with before marriage. So all those things were at slippery slope where I felt Satan getting a stronghold in my life, and that was not the boy that was raised in the church. But I think oftentimes in college we just drift away from that because we don't have that strong support system anymore. We're sort of just sent out like an arrow, just flung into the world. So that was part of my college experience. And then after that, moved to Sin City because I was chasing money. And in Las Vegas Valley, they had two of the highest paid departments in the nation. And that was Henderson, Nevada, where Ashley was born and raised, which is the bottom suburb of Las Vegas. And in Sin City, I just wanted to chase life with purpose and chase justice. So I wanted to be a hostage negotiator like my father was. Because I think, like every boy, they just chase the love and respect of their father, and that pretty much drives them, at least for the first quarter or half of their lives. So that's what I was chasing. And unfortunately, I got to that point early in my career. I think I was like 25 or 26 when I became a hostage negotiator, which then put me in a lot of awkward situations and critical events in my life that I just wasn't ready to get through and rationalize. So I would argue that after college and into the career, I chased that career ambition, and I put all my faith in the CJ instead of the JC. So I put my faith in the criminal justice system rather than Jesus Christ at that point. But I didn't realize what was about to happen.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a turning point in there. So what happened to kind of change you, renew you? Wasn't easy, if I remember.
So there was a lot of situations in Las Vegas because it's Sin City and because there's millions of people there. A lot of critical events, whether it was a kidnapping and ransoming at the doorstep, which then shifted into Mexico, or a terrorist where I got sued, or officer-involved shootings where I was there. There was just a lot of issues that I was dealing with, and I just lost focus on life, and I was eventually hospitalized on November 28th of 2012 when I was 28. And at that point, the world got a lot smaller, and it wasn't about the impact I could have on the justice system, but it was just about my ability to be a father, and a son, and a husband, and I just wanted at that point to just live a normal life. I was pretty much done with criminal justice, and that caused our family to eventually move back here so I could have my kids grow up with their grandfather. But again, life had different plans there too. And then I met a lot of great people. So one of the persons that I wanted to say, and I know we're stretched for time, but
You're fine.
so during that time, I didn't realize what I needed. I was denied 3 times a job here in Fairmont because I wasn't the right fit. I wasn't good enough. But eventually, I was hired, and I worked inside of a jail for 2 years. And like in Isaiah, it says you have to wait. I didn't want to wait. I felt I could make an impact right away, even though I wrestled with God, saying, it's not about me anymore. It's not about my desires of God. It should be about God's desires of me. But eventually, a job opened up, and I got to have a field training officer who I spent far more than 100 hours late at night talking to. And I don't know if anyone knows Matt Owens, but he was that person. I'm glad those weren't billable hours, especially at a therapist rate, but he was quiet, and he listened, and he never judged, he never shamed, and that was a big turning point.
Yeah, so you said your life went from, you were in a worldly important place, big-time job, moving back home, right?
Yep.
Life got a lot smaller for you, but even in that, you felt God renewing you. Mm-hmm. How about you, Ashley?
So moving away from the Sin City and normalizing of sin, mostly keeping up with the Joneses, if you had the best designer bag or the best new cell phone that came out, the most expensive vehicle, that was like what it was like living there. We moved to Fairmont and met some Christ-following good people. We were asked by several people to come to Bethel. And thankfully we did, because that started putting God's desires of me ahead of my desires of my God. Then we started focusing truly on the scripture. And at that time, we started really focusing on our finances. At one point in 2019, we applied for a loan, and we actually were denied it because we just had too much debt on the table. Then we started in financial peace and started teaching it, which kept us on the course, and we cut the slaves of chains of debt. With this, I felt I could run and not be weary. Running to me is sharing our victory over finances, which brought me to contentment. I used to feel like I had to go on the best vacations, have the nicest vehicles, or house to have a purpose. Having an identity defined by God and not defined by the world around us changed everything. Contentment life is not measured by how much money you have or by having the nicest things. I now serve with the church design team, help with church musical, and I'm in a couple of Bible studies as well. Once I put God first, husband second, and family third, and asked God daily for wisdom, I felt like I can breathe now.
That was a big deal for you from where you came from, right?
Yes, it was.
Quite the change.
Coming from a 24-hour city to Fairmount was not the easiest thing.
Yeah. It's a little different here. There's no Aldi. That's the main thing we notice.
No.
So, is there anything else about how God has renewed your life? We got a picture up here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What does this make you think of?
This, to us, we're lucky enough to have great neighbors in Gary and Julie Fowler and then Lynn and Barb Sandersfeld. And when we bought this property, there was 4 pine trees in the backyard. And we went ahead and cut those down. One of the trees almost fell on Gary's southwest corner of his house, but luckily it didn't. The wind magically shifted, and then the tree went into the corner. But
I didn't know about that.
No. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Gary was there at the time. I'm not sure. I think he was probably in his house. I would be too if my neighbor was cutting down a tree. So this picture to me is about contentment. We went ahead and Walls dreamed of having just an orchard and dogs, and it's like the cliche is the American dream, right? So you have like 2.5 kids, a picket fence, and 2 dogs. But to me, this is enough. You know, I can sit back there and just watch the clouds roll over and listen to the conversations of the golfers on the green there. Pretty sure they don't know I'm listening, but I'll just sit there on the hammock and just be able to breathe. And that was the complete opposite in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, life never stopped.
Nope.
But here, ever since coming to this church, confirming our faith, having 2 of our 3 kids baptized and the 3rd one wanting to soon, like everything just shifts. When you ask for wisdom and you ask for strength every day, you don't have to worry about being everything to everyone all the time. You can just take a deep breath and know that God's going to use you when He needs to use you. You just have to be ready.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You go from like the big time, what the world would consider the big time, right? Las Vegas, all of that. But you said, here you can breathe. You found contentment. I just think that's wonderful. If you ever drive by their house, we drive by their house and it's like, wow, I wonder what the Gerhardts are up to back there now. I mean, they're always putting things in. So anything else you want to share about how God has renewed you?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. If you want to give them a round of applause, yeah.